Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share our story, my children's journey with living with SCID. Um, this Our story started back in about almost 7 years ago. Um, first of all, first we Terrance and I met back in 2012, and we met through mutual friends, and it was going great. We started dating and everything. It was going well, and a year later, I found out I was pregnant with our first child, and we were excited. We were scared, of course. We were going to be parents for the first time, and we took care of ourselves. I took care of myself, took all my prenatal vitamins, ate healthy. I was so excited to become a mother, and luckily I had help with my parents as well, and my mom for being there while I was going through my pregnancy. And my due date was set for December 6th, 2013. And I gave birth to Ava November 21st, 2013, so she was about 2 weeks early. When I had her, I was in labor for about 27 and a half hours. It was a painful one. I experienced a lot of pain. Even with epidural, I experienced a lot of pain. But once she came out, I believe that was our first sign that she had SCID. She came out with a fever already right when she came out. I didn't even get to hold her. They just took her, cleaned her up, and they told me she had a temperature already. And I myself had a temperature as well. And they were trying to get me to calm down. And they said, they took care of me first. And they were with her over there, taking care of her. And um, that was our first sign. And they told us that she needed to stay in the hospital for 5 more days on antibiotics. And I didn't get to take her home. I didn't get to sleep with her our first night. Um, and I breastfed her right away, too, right when she came out, or once they handed her to me. And so 5 days later, we took her home. She was fine. She was fine. No more fevers. She responded well to the antibiotics, and we took her home. We were happy and about to live our lives as parents, and bringing her home and having introduced her to our families. And a month went by. She had a fever, and it was during the time of flu season too. So we thought, okay, well, maybe Ava has the flu, or maybe she got sick, maybe she has a cold. So we took her to the hospital, and again, they prescribed her antibiotics. They just said, just keep her away from people. Right now it's flu season, cold season. So I said, okay. And we thought it was fine. She would be fine. And they gave us meds for that. And we said, okay, Ava should be fine. We saw a doctor, took her into our pediatrician. They said everything should be fine. And then 2 weeks later, she got sick again. Same thing, kept telling us it was just the cold going around, a flu going around, something was going around. She kept getting sick. And she just kept getting sick. It was just getting worse from there, over the course of 5 months. And then finally, there was just a point where it got so bad, and we were at home with my parents. And as first time parents, we don't know what to do. We're scared. We didn't know what were the telltale signs of, how bad it was. And my mother and my father, they looked at Ava and they were like, you need to take her to the hospital. She doesn't look good. And, we need to do something. She just does not look, she looks very sick. So we took her to a children's hospital in Phoenix, the Banner Cardin's Children's Hospital. And when we got there, the ER was filled. There was a lot of kids in there. There was a lot of sick babies. We thought we might have had to wait for a while. So she had fevers. She wasn't breathing well. And once we got to triage, they took a look at her and everything. And once they took her vitals, they took her in right away. They took her in. They just rushed her back into the ER department. And Terrance and I we didn't know what to do. We were scared. We were saying, what's happening to our baby? Why are we rushing back here? And her oxygen was very low. Her heart rate was very high. She just wasn't really breathing on her own. She needed support. And they took all sorts of tests once they hooked her up, got her IV started, and we didn't know what was happening. And right away they said, we're going to admit her. We don't know what's going on. We took all the tests. We'll swab her everything for RSV, bronchitis, the rhinovirus. And we said, okay. So we got admitted into the Children's Hospital. And a few days later, her test came back. She had bronchitis. And that was all they said she had at first. So we said, okay. And they said, you'll be in here for a few days. We're just going to treat her and you guys will get to go home. And some of the other tests came back. She had RSV, bronchitis, enterovirus, rhinovirus. And she had Pseudomonas. And a week later, they said, we don't know why she's not getting better. Her body's not responding to any of the meds. And they said, we're gonna have to look deeper into this. We don't know why she's not getting any better. We're thinking about doing a bone marrow aspiration. And we said, okay, do whatever it takes. And so they took all the tests they needed, blood tests, to see what else was going on with her body. And at that point, she was on full oxygen. It just looked like she was shutting down. We didn't know what was going on, and our families rushed to our side as well. And they told us after all her testings that she had leukemia. And we couldn't believe it. We were in shock, but we were surprised. We had all the emotions you could name it. We were in disbelief. We didn't realize a child at this age, at almost 6 months, would have leukemia. And the doctor told us, we're not going to act now on anything. We want to make sure she has leukemia because her body is responding as if she had leukemia, and we want to get a second opinion. And luckily, Ava's dad, Terrance, his mom, she works at the Tuba City Regional Healthcare Center in Tuba City, and she works with Doctor Who. And of course, they treat, they have SCID patients there, so they're well, aware about all of this. And we got a second opinion with Doctor Who. His mom took the blood work back to Tuba City. And she called us right away once she saw those tests, and she immediately told us, Ava has SCID. We know she has SCID, and we want to reach out to UCSF, Benioff Children's Hospital in San Francisco, and we want to properly, diagnose her there. And they asked us if we had anybody in our family that had SCID. We said, no, nobody in our both our families have SCID, no. And we don't know what that is, and we're not familiar with it. We don't know anybody in our families who have SCID, or we don't have any friends or anybody. And so right away, that was about in a 2-week time frame being at the hospital. And during that time, Ava caught that Pseudomonas infection in her nose. Um, it it uh it infected her nose to where it started eating up her skin right here, and it got really bad. It got just I don't know if we have pictures that we can. I shared pictures with Alyssa as well, but yeah, it really got bad on her nose, infected her nose. Um and that was really, it was really hard to see her go through that. I just felt like she was just, her body was just shutting down. We thought we were going to lose her at that time. We never seen her. I just felt like we took the right steps at the right time to save her life. And if Terrance's mom didn't send the test results to Doctor Who, it just feels like we would have lost her. And we flew her to San Francisco right away, and we got everything we needed. We just packed one suitcase. We just had a day to get ready, and we didn't know what our lives were going to be. We truly thought we were going to lose her. We just felt like we had no hope. And luckily, Terrance and I were able to fly with Ava to San Francisco. And we met with all the doctors and nurses and her healthcare team there. And um, they told us for sure, she has SCID. All of her symptoms, her test results, her lab results, they all show that she does have Artemis SCID. And Terrance and I, we just felt like it was just like a whole new world that just bestowed all on us, just upon us, and we just didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know all these medical terms. We didn't know what was going to happen. And they told us that she needed a life-saving bone marrow transplant. And they went over all they went over everything that would needed to be done, and all the lab work, what she needed. She needed a line, a Broviac placed. She needed blood work, and they wanted to check for me and Terrance to be donors. And luckily, I was able to be her donor. And I took my GCSF shots, and to and oh gosh, Lord. And I did everything I could, to provide for her, to be her donor. And luckily, I was cleared. I took my GCSF shots, and I went through the donating process, and it was painful. It was very painful, but I would do it again and over again for my daughter. And so she got chemotherapy, a light dose of chemotherapy, and they moved forward with her transplant. And luckily, I was able to donate my cells to her. And by that time, this was June 2014 that she got her transplant. So it was about 7 months after she was born. And that time frame of a baby having SCID, she wouldn't have survived. I just don't know how we got so lucky with her, with her having that long fighting for her life, and she made it through. And after her transplant, she struggled a lot. She had a long way ahead of her, uh, of you know, becoming well and fighting these viruses, bacterial infections. And also, she had a hard time with GVHD. She did get graft versus host disease, and that was a very hard struggle with her. And she fought that. That was a hard fight with her. But luckily, she overcame it, and we spent about 7 months in the hospital with her, and we got discharged in November. And we took her to family house here in San Francisco, along with, being outpatient, checking on her every week to see how she was doing. She was doing very well. She had a few ER visits through that time, and but it seemed like she was on the right track of gaining her cells back and her immunity. And we finally got to take her home in March of 2015. We took her home back to Arizona, and it felt like we were taking home a newborn again. And it was really exciting. We felt like new parents again, all over again. And our families were excited to see her and, actually touch her for the first time again and hold her. And it just all felt like we were bringing home a newborn baby, but, a healthy baby. And at the same time, we were scared. We didn't know whether, if we go back, are we going to come back again? And is she going to get sick? What do we do? Do we take her outside? Do we take her to the store with us? And it was just all new to us. And, we learned a lot from all of the nurses and doctors, and of how to care for her at home. And we just brought those techniques and the things we learned in the hospital, being in isolation, we just brought all that knowledge home with us and did the best we could to take care of her. And that whole year, she did really well. She did very well. She was thriving. She was meeting milestones. She started crawling. She started walking. She had a setback with that because she was very weak. And her vocabulary just all of a sudden bloomed. We have no idea how. All of a sudden, she just grew up to be this smart girl. And over the next 2 years, it was going well. And they told us on December 2016 that she needed another transplant, or like what they call a boost. And they told us that we need to come back to San Francisco. And again, we thought, how it was last time. We were scared. We didn't know what to do. We had more knowledge of how this thing would go again, so we weren't as scared as the first time. We just took this as, okay, we need to do this for her. We just felt more confident about this time around because she was so well and she wasn't so sick. And so we came back to UCSF, and they introduced us to a new trial that they were doing, which is called that SCID study, and it was being done at Stanford University. And so they told us, would you rather want to do a SCID study and have Ava be the first toddler ever to do this? And you would have to have it done at Stanford University, the Lucille Packard Children's Hospital there. And we laid out the pros and cons of each, the regular bone marrow transplant, the SCID study, and going through chemotherapy, and her having not to do chemotherapy with the SCID. And we went with the SCID study. We said, anything to keep her away from chemo. and having to struggle with GVHD again. And so we packed our bags, we went to Stanford, we stayed there, and it was over the course of 3 weeks, which was really, really surprising, and it went very well. I was her donor again, which was great. And I went through the process of donating my cells, and they did the trial on her, and luckily thankfully she responded very well. It was like, it was so much different than the first round. She just sat there. She was just playing every day. She was happy. She was playing. She was doing games with the nurses, the occupational therapists. They were coming in, and she was responding very well. That whole time frame of her being there during the transplant, and we stayed there for about 3 weeks, and finally we got to come back to UCSF, and we were being treated for the rest of her time here, and her body responded very well with that transplant, although it took about a year until we could finally go home. During that time frame, again, she did have ER visits from time to time. She had her clinic visits, and finally we got to go home in January 2018. And she's done very well since then. I was a full-time mom for the past all those years. Since she was a newborn, I became a full-time mom, and taking care of her all those years, and bringing her home that year, I just knew that she was going to be well. She was going to be well enough, to carry on her life and live happy. And so I was confident enough to go back to work, and that was really that I felt like that was a milestone being met as well on my end, being able to go back to work. And all of that year, it felt like she was just, again, blooming, meeting these milestones, and growing up to be this beautiful, smart girl. And her starting kindergarten year last year, and now she's 6 years old, and her teacher said that she's ahead of her class, and she's excelling in reading, and she got a principal's award last year, and she brings home these little cards. It's so cute. She brings home these little cards and saying how well she does, and they call it a super shark, and she's a super shark every other day. It's just great. And she has a lot of friends at school as well, and it's just, it makes it so emotional how far she's come, knowing that the first part of her life she was fighting to survive, and now she has friends, she's excelling in school. Again, she still goes to her clinic visits in Phoenix, and she's doing well. And right now she's at home with her dad. I just don't know what we would have done if we didn't take the steps we needed, especially we don't know how to thank Terrance's mother for doing what she did and stepped up and got the second opinion. We don't know what would have happened. But during that time last year, I'm just gonna briefly just talk about our son. I gave birth to our son, our second child, last year, and we found out he had SCID last year, December, just this past year. And right now we're at UCSF hospital in San Francisco, and he went through gene therapy in February, and he's doing very, very well. He's a happy baby, and it's a lot different than what Ava went through for sure, but he's doing very well. He's about to be 4 months this week, and I shared some pictures with Alyssa as well, if she can show you, but that's where we're at right now. And Ava and Terrance are in Phoenix in isolation, quarantined, and me and Camden are here. His name's Camden, and yeah, it's just a long journey ahead once again, but you know, we have the best team here and we have a lot of support behind us. So um, yeah, we're confident that he'll be fine as well. And he went through gene therapy, and
Erica, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for everybody who is in attendance. You have such strength and grace through all of this. And I don't know if you can see many people in the video, but they're also waving at you and saying thank you.
yeah, thank
I was able
you.
to share some of the videos as you were chatting, so I hope everyone is able to see those as well.
Okay, thank you for having me. Thank you.